All right, welcome to part two of applying validation. In our previous video, once again, what we did was we looked at the three different types of validation from existence to data type to range. And I showed you some code that you could possibly use, again, cut and paste into your own program. You can either separate it by two different conditional statements. I think that's perfectly fine. Or what you can do also is create a nested if. I gave you both examples, again, that you could utilize in your own programs. I wouldn't try to redo this whole thing. Once again, cutting and pasting is probably a good idea with the existing program that I provided for you for this video and also for this particular week. You'll find this program there for you. Okay? So with that said, I want to take a little bit more time with you and kind of talk about another type of validation, or really just for existence in this case. So what I did is I went ahead and added enhanced, I guess however you want to say it, our 8VB Auto Center. And so the managers came back and said, hey, I really like your program. This is great, but we want to collect the first name and the last name. This might be something that we collect and we stick into a database in the future, whatever. But right now they're saying we want to collect first name and last name of the customer who is buying the car. I want to be able to put that information in. And it's required. Both first name and last name is required. So it must be there. In this case, it's not a numeric, right? So is numerics not going to work? How can we make sure that it is the existence works? And it's not a range, it's only existence in this case, right? So let's go ahead and write the code for that. All right, so we'll come back down here and we'll do this first, okay? And so it's pretty simple. All you got to do is say txt first name dot text, okay? There's a couple different ways of doing it. We can just put single quote, double quote, which basically says, is it a null value? Is anything to put in there at all? And so if it is a null value, that means it hasn't been put in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little cutting and pasting myself. And I'll come up here and I'll modify this and say first name must exist. Okay, or maybe first name must be provided. However, whatever you want to state is perfectly fine with me. Okay, just make sure once again it's spelled correctly. There you go, F-I-R-S-T. And so just make sure it's explanatory, meaning it makes sense to the user, and what you're actually stating is what's incorrect about the data. Okay. Another way of doing this, then, let's see. I'll go ahead and finish this up. First name, there you go, put the focus back there. And then next it's sub, pretty simple. So this particular if statement's only checking for existence, and that's all we really want in this case. There is no data type, there is no range in this case. We just want to make sure that the first name is there. We can't really concern ourselves with what they put in there. If they put in A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, some weird first name, that's all fine, we'll accept it. So we'll do the same thing with last name. I'll go ahead and cut and paste this. And this will be for last name. And there it is right there. Perfect. And modify. Hopefully you're seeing, again, quick ways of getting through your program. And a lot of this, you're going to be doing a lot of validation, a lot of different inputs. Cut and paste and update. The kicker is make sure you update everything that needs to be updated. Okay. And one other thing you may see out there, instead of that, is this right here, string.empty. And so in this case, what we're saying is that, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Instead of looking for null values, we can also say if txt last name.text equals string.empty. So meaning that it's an empty string, right? There's nothing in there. I kind of like the string.empty. It's probably more, what do you want to say, accepted in today's world. Either one will actually work. I want to show you both examples. You pick one and you use it in your case, all right? There's a lot of different ways you're going to be validating as you go through. I've had students ask me, how do I check, for the length of things? How do I check to see if it's a good email account with, maybe the @ sign in there? Those are great questions, and questions I'll give you answers to in programming too. we'll start playing around with the strings at that point in time and start looking internally to the strings to see what we have, how long things are, what could be, making sure certain characters are within the strings. These are called string manipulation techniques. I don't want you to concern yourself with them in programming 1, but again, you'll learn how to do those in programming 2. The final thing that I mentioned to you at one point was what happens if our managers, or our customer, I should say, comes to us and says, you know what, I don't want a default. I want all of these to be like this. I want to force them to pick one. Well, if that's the case, now it's actually really important that one of them is picked. So how would you do that? Well, let's think about that for a second. So now what we need to do, and we can put that, I don't care, we'll put that somewhere here. We'll do it right here. What would we need to do there? It's another conditional statement. We got to ask if RAD custom.checked or RAD, let's see, custom Perlize, there it is right there, Perlize.checked or RAD standard.checked, right? So we're basically saying if one of those 3 is checked, everything is good, okay? Else, we have an error message. All right, so if we don't have a default there, we're going to have to validate. Now, as I told you yesterday, one of the great things is using controls to eliminate some of the validation and eliminate the possibilities of users creating errors. So I'm not sure I really like this. I like the defaults, okay? But if my customer comes to me and says, no, I really want them to pick it, this is what I would have to do. I would have to sit back and come up with some type of logic that says, if they don't pick one of those 3, meaning if this is not true, if this is not true, or if this is not true, meaning one of them is not checked, then I have an error message right there. And again, what I would do is throw this in here like this and say, finish must be selected. Okay, probably put the focus on one of them. I don't know, rad. We'll go say standard.focus and then exit the sub there. As you notice, I kind of did this in a positive way. I hate the knots in there. Some people can write knots. I was taught never to use a not. A not or is really a bad idea. So in this case here, I'm checking to see if one of these are true. If they are, I'm not going to do anything. That's what I'm saying here. Else, I'm going to create an error message. Instead of me saying if not this or not that or not that, I'm telling you that's not good programming. I'd rather you not do that. Sorry for that. So I'd rather you just have an empty true area within your condition, and that's perfectly fine. It's almost like the assumed else the other way around. It's almost assumed true. I'm not doing anything. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go ahead and try these real fast. And so in this case here, if I press submit, it should say finish must be selected. I go, okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and pick one of them. All right, and go from there. That's cool. This case, first name must exist. There you go. I'll give it that weird first name there. Last name must exist. Once again, there we go. And again, you should test all of this to make sure your validation actually works pretty well and does exactly what you want it to do and meets all the criteria, and so that your program will actually work with good data. Again, that's what our goal here is. We want to get good data to come into our program so we can provide great information going out, correct? So there's the whole adage called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out when it comes to programming. If we allow garbage to come into our program, we're going to provide garbage output. And we don't want to do that. We want to be professional programmers that do it correctly. And so validation is a huge part of programming. I know we haven't done it up to this point, but I hope you understand the reason we haven't done it is because we haven't introduced a conditional statement yet. And this is how you do it. So quite a few different ways of approaching this. It's all based on the requirements. And I hope this makes a good understanding for you. All right. Now it's your time to give it a shot and learn from this. But once again, a lot of cutting and pasting. I think I gave you quite a few examples here that you can use for your own programs I think just about, it's almost exhaustive. I don't want to say it is exhaustive, but it's just about exhaustive. And anything else that you would add to your validation would just be modifications to this. Okay? All right. Good luck to you.